Well, thank you for joining us today. My name is Teddy Potter, and I'm the Director of Planetary Health for the School of Nursing. And it is my great pleasure to be hosting this event today as a way of giving hope to all of us. We know that the information related to climate change and other environmental issues is showing that these are very, very urgent times, and we need to act quickly. But sometimes it is easy for people to feel overwhelmed, to feel like, what can one person do? This is too large an issue. How can I possibly have an impact? So for that reason, I wanted to kick off the 2021-2022 Planetary Health year in giving us some information about what can individuals do. And so it's my great pleasure to introduce Zoe Pettit. Zoe is a recent graduate from the University of Minnesota and an environmental activist currently living in Portland, Oregon. She runs a blog called Cut the Crap, which aims to provide accessible ways to both make sustainable changes as well as be take realistic action in the climate movement. She runs a website. She enjoys writing for other blogs. She likes to hike. She enjoys her family, and she's thinking about pursuing studies in environmental policy. Zoe, it's wonderful to have you here today, and thank you for helping the School of Nursing and our allies understand how we can live sustainable lives. Thank you. And for those of you, before I forget, as time goes on, at the end, we're going to open the space for questions and answers. So please feel free to type your questions, any questions you have, in the QA section. Welcome, Zoe.
Thank you so much, Teddy. And welcome everyone again. I just want to say thank you again for taking a small chunk out of your day to be here. I am so grateful just to be able to share a little bit about what I learned by starting my website and just by slowly incorporating sustainable practices into my own life. So before we begin, I want to share just a little bit more about me, since I'm assuming most of you probably have no clue who I am. All right. So a little bit about me. Again, my name is Zoe Pettit, and I just graduated from the University of Minnesota this summer. Yay. I received my Bachelor of Science in Conservation Biology. So while graduating was exciting, I also moved the same week across the country to Portland, Oregon. So it was a lot of big changes, but it's been so fun and exciting. I had to keep on theme with making 2021 the year of big changes in my life. So I also married the love of my life last month. I can't introduce myself without also introducing my furry children. So those are the cute little kitties. On the slide here on the left is Groot, and on the right is Nebula. And yes, they do make those faces often. My passion is making the climate movement and climate issues accessible to everyone who's interested in at least learning more about our Earth and how to take positive action for our collective future. So I want to start out by saying that I would love any comments and questions throughout the presentation if you have them. I'm going to try to monitor the chat box up in the corner, but I'm not very technologically advanced. So if need be, we'll answer everything at the end in our Q&A section as well. The overview for this presentation is to start off by talking about my journey with my website, Cut the Crap, and then all of the opportunities that it's presented me with so far over the past year. Then I'm going to talk about a topic that's really important to me and central to my mission, and that is why our individual actions do matter. Third, I created an activity that you can take away from this presentation and choose to do in your own home if you want to continue taking action, and that's going to be a waste audit and goal setting worksheet. So to dive right in to Cut the Crap, it is a website that I dreamed up in April of 2020 for a project in my GCC course. It was creating an empowered movement for change, and Teddy was one of the professors in that course actually, and she's one of the people who inspired me and really motivated me and showed me that individuals can make change and inspire others just by being their amazing selves. So my initial idea for the course was to do a reusable cup initiative around campus, but right as I came up with that idea and started putting it into action, COVID happened, and obviously every reusable object basically just went out the window. And so kind of had to do a huge 360 on what we were going to do for the class project. So after deciding that a website with ways for my classmates to take action at home would be the best way to keep people motivated and inspired during a pandemic, Cut the Crap was born. So the first version of the website that we launched for class is seen here on the left on the screen. I had an awesome group that helped me get my first articles and promotions done for the site around campus, and one group member, Bella, and I decided to continue the site forward. I now have created a new and updated version of Cut the Crap on my own, but I wanted to take a little bit to share all of the opportunities that the past year gave me with my website, Cut the Crap. So to start off, I was able to network with Bainey Surrey, who leads New Jersey Environmental Lobby and several other climate campaigns. Cut the Crap was used as a resource on their site and social media, and I also work as an assistant on climate campaigns for them. So that picture on the left is just a flyer I created for a virtual kickoff for a climate campaign out in New Jersey. It's really amazing. I was able to organize it through Zoom and still be a part of it, even though I was in Minnesota at the time. Cut the Crap is also featured as a resource on Cleanup News, which is a partner of Clean Trails, which is in turn a partner of National Cleanup Day, which is a really awesome website. I definitely recommend you visit them if you want more resources. Similar to Cut the Crap, just DIYs, different environmental topics explained, interviews with activists. And then one of my newer projects is that I'm working with an amazing woman in Germany to put together nature education resources for youth to help them learn English. And then lastly, I was able to interview activists from all over the world, doing everything from running a zero waste store in Mexico, to running a foraging business, to spreading environmental education in communities through policy. Cut the Crap really made me realize that we can truly inspire change on a larger scale just by starting with changing your own mindset and lifestyle habits. So I'm going to talk about Cut the Crap for just a second longer. I was able to start my own projects and really just get involved with activism on larger scales in my community and in the United States. So first, I was featured in a resource guide for award-winning journalist Naomi Klein. She just created a new youth activism book, and they created a resource guide to go along with it for youth to visit, get inspired, and to just follow up with the messages in the book. I really look up to her as a journalist, and I highly recommend checking out her books. She talks about the economy and activism. Her name is Naomi Klein again. The second picture in the top right corner there is from when I was inspired to start a community recycling drive in West St. Paul. So we collected plastic film and plastic bags to recycle with a company called Trex. The company actually turns the plastic into building material that's used in outdoor furniture, outdoor decking, and it's just a really durable recycled material. It's a very easy program to get started. If you want to start one in your own community, it's as simple as just collecting film in your school, place of work. You can throw an event in a parking lot like I did, or you can just do it at home. If you collect a certain amount of plastic waste, you can get a bench put into a community area. If you're interested in starting something like that in your community, that's a big step, but you can always reach out to me. I'll have contact information at the end. I also doubled that collection drive as a donation drive for the Native homeless communities. My mom works as a social worker with the homeless communities, so we were able to collect warm winter gear, personal items, stuff like that. Lastly, Cut the Crap had just begun to dabble in hosting online events. So we hosted 2 movie discussions, and we had donation-based yoga for related organizations after each of the discussions. That was a really fun project to me because talking about the movies with different people from all over the world was really eye-opening. We had people from Minnesota, people from the East Coast, we had some people from Scotland and other places in Europe. So it was interesting to be able to compare experiences and discuss something like Kiss the Ground or Mission Blue, if you're familiar with those films. To move forward, now my website is very different. I just officially launched it today after building it from scratch for about 2 months. So I really sat down and kind of had to analyze how I wanted to continue making larger change and keep networking and starting more campaigns. So my website's a more professional version of the vision that I had in the future for Cut the Crap. So it'll be continuously developing this month as I add more sections. I will be starting an online book club, hosting more events like a bike repair workshop, litter cleanup events, advocacy workshops, and more. So definitely stay connected with me if you want to join any of these events, if you want to help with any of the events. I'll have contact information at the end. So the reason that I talked so much about my website is because I genuinely think it shows how one person who is passionate can really inspire change on a larger scale. The climate movement can be so overwhelming, especially if you haven't had a formal education or background on what is going on environmentally, politically, and socially. Going zero waste is a hard and honestly sometimes daunting task, but tackling just 1 or 2 goals a month will help you live an overall more conscious and sustainable lifestyle that will surely inspire others in your life. So one example of this is when I interned for a water management organization and I learned how litter on the ground runs directly into storm drains when it rains, and then that drains directly into our surrounding water bodies. I began going on a weekly walk with my husband to pick up trash in the surrounding streets and parks by where I lived. I would just post photos on my social media each time just to show how much I was able to collect on a short walk. Honestly, it surprised me, so I wanted to post pictures and surprise others. After doing this for a couple of months and honestly feeling pretty much like the only person who cared about pollution, I found a group in St. Paul that did monthly litter cleanups around the city. I was really nervous to attend it alone, but I broke out of my comfort zone and I found out that there were so many people in my community of St. Paul who cared about the same issues I did. A week after I did the group cleanup, 2 people I knew posted on their Snapchats that I inspired them to get out in their neighborhood and pick up trash. It made me so happy to know that just by sharing what I was doing, I was inspiring others to think about our effects on the environment and realizing we can make a small difference by calling awareness to the issue. This story really motivates me to keep making change because over the course of a month, I was able to see direct change that I was able to make by inspiring others. And I also made new friends in my community who cared about the same things I did, and it made me commit to working at taking action. So when people ask, do my individual actions even matter? I always say yes. The weight of the environmental crisis is not on the individual's shoulder, of course, but we do all have the power to change the way others think by leading by example. Incorporating sustainable habits into your lifestyle has the power to inspire change by influencing those in your household, your family, and even your community. Personally, changing my habits to align with my research I was doing helped me to confront and deal with the eco-anxiety I was feeling. When the majority of a community starts to share common values in terms of consumerism practices, companies really start to notice and assess the values of changing to more sustainable options to appeal to the market. Incorporating sustainable habits can also lead to larger change by pushing you to join community groups, organizations, or bringing your ideas into your workplace or school. I personally think that there are many different ways to take action on a few different scales. So the way that I organize it in my mind is by separating my goals into 4 different categories. So it starts off in your mind. Acknowledging and understanding the problem is the first step towards taking action. So when I think about this, I think about reading books, I think about watching documentaries, and I think about reading peer-reviewed articles that are scientific based. I am someone who taking action is really hard if I can't connect emotionally to why I'm doing it. So I want to understand water pollution. I want to understand why maybe I should switch my diet to more plant-based meals. I want to understand air pollution. So I do a lot of research. And in that research, I find ways that I can take action. And it also just helps motivate me to actually take that next step and make the change in my life. So moving on, at home, this is where the rest of the presentation is really going to focus. Our homes tend to be where we have the most habits, routines built up. And so this is a great place to start shifting some of your practices just to change the way that your mindset works and how you look at different things in the world. So there's 2 kind of larger steps. If you want to take this further, I'll just briefly go over them, but you can start taking action in your community. So like I did before, meeting others in your community who share a common vision of the future. It contributes to making changes happen on a larger scale, while also letting you know that you're not alone in the fight. It's really important to join other organizations and groups because we need as many voices as possible on as many missions as possible. One person is not going to be able to change the world, but if we all work together towards a common goal, it's going to be powerful and it's going to be impactful. And then the next step is moving large scale. So this is something larger, like developing sustainable initiatives and programs for your place of work, school, or housing complex. And they're all accessible next steps that continue to educate and inspire those around you. I've heard so many success stories of people starting a compost program in their apartment, people starting a recycling initiative in their work office building, starting a composting program on a school campus. Those are things where you'll need to join a group or get a group going around you to get the mission going. But these are all great ways to start changing people's mindsets around you, especially in your community or in the larger surrounding area. So moving forward, I wanted to share one of my favorite quotes that kind of, I would say, gives me a kick in the butt when I'm feeling a little down or having a little bit of a lull in the climate movement, because as I said, it's so overwhelming to read kind of the prognosis and the predictions that there are for the future, especially as a young person. It's hard to not know what the next 5 years hold for you, what the next 10 years hold for you. But we really can make change. We are here. We know it's happening. I'll stop going off on my passionate tangent and I'm just going to read the quote out loud. So the climate crisis has already been solved. We already have the facts and solutions. All we have to do is wake up and change. And that's by Greta Thunberg, environmental activist. Everyone knows her. She is amazing. So I just want to leave that quote with you. I have this as my phone screensaver. Do what you will with it. But I really think that we do have the power and we all have the chance to make a change, even if it's just in our own homes. So now to get into the juicy bit, the part that you're all waiting for, the activity. I'm going to tell you ways to take action in your own home, some of the sustainable swaps that I've personally made that have saved me money, and of course, reduced the waste that I'm putting out here. So we're going to be doing an at-home waste audit. So we're just going to try to add an environmental scope to some of your lifestyle habits while keeping it affordable, accessible to as many as possible. So the waste audit worksheet basically just gives you a place to record what you are sending to the landfill, recycling, and compost each week. These pictures are some of my favorite garbage robots from a food cart pod near me here in Portland, Oregon. Obviously, composting and recycling is a huge thing out here. So that really gives me hope that it can be a really large thing in cities all over the United States. So a waste audit kind of sounds like an intense project when you say it from the get-go, but it can be as simple or as intense as you want to make it. This is the first page of the worksheet. So it's basically just here for you to record your habits, what you're sending to the garbage, what you're sending to recycling, what you are going to send to compost, or anything that you can save to donate. Some people will sort and keep their trash for an entire week and then catalog it at the end. Some people make a log of everything they're throwing away for a week. And if you're super busy like me, I work on it at least 2 days a week for the month. I don't have the time to sit at the end of the week and dump out my trash bag on the floor and sort it into piles. If you do, that's amazing. It's a great visual. For me, I just take a couple days a week and I look at what I'm throwing away on one day. And that really helps me gauge a picture of what my set in stone habits are. I'll be talking about kind of my pitfalls where I'm struggling to make sustainable changes in just a second. The purpose of thinking about your waste generation is just to begin a discussion in your home about what practices you feel like you can change and what practices you rely on to get through the day. So like I said, I'm going to show you a quick example. So I compiled what my top contributors are right now to each category on the worksheet. So garbage, recycling, compost, and donations. So to move forward, this is the garbage that I contribute each week. without fail, this is something that I always send to the landfill. So chips. Seasoned chips are my huge downfall. They are my go-to snack when I'm stressed, and I just cannot replicate them with a normal potato. It's something I'm working on, but this is something that really stands out to me in my garbage audits. Every week, I'm writing down chip bags, chip bags, chip bags. The next thing is bread products and tortillas. I make a lot of carb dinners, and making bread has not gone well for me. So I really rely on buying it from the store. I try to reuse the bags for my cat litter box to at least not send it to the landfill right away. But that is something that I'm really struggling with not sending to the landfill. And like I said, every single week I'm sending that to the trash. And then the last thing is meat alternatives. I don't eat meat, but I live with someone, or my husband does eat meat. So we try to incorporate a lot of substitutes into our meals. And it is another thing that I just cannot home make for the life of me. So I encourage you to, over the course of a day or a week, simply look at, what do you buy every week? What is in packaging? Can you try to make this homemade? If not, is there a place that you can go to buy it without a packaging? It's just really helpful to start a discussion in your life to see, do I really need this? Do I need to be sending this to the trash? Can I make it through the week without it? And whatever your answer is, that's up to you. And that's how you're going to live your life. And if you can't make changes in this area, you're going to be able to make changes in another area. So the next thing is recycling. These, again, are just examples of stuff that I really struggle with. Energy drinks is something that I really rely on to get through my 10-hour work shifts serving. It is, yeah, I cannot get rid of those right now. And then, of course, alcoholic beverages are something that most of us all enjoy. Not many of us make it at home. So luckily in Oregon, I do get 10 cents back for recycling these, and I know they are getting properly recycled. However, in Minnesota, not all counties do recycle aluminum cans or glass bottles. So that's just something to think about. It may not actually be getting recycled. And then paper products, glass, and aluminum is what I try to buy products in if I need packaging, because like I said, I know that those all are getting recycled in my county here in Oregon. So I really encourage you to look up the county that you're living in, see what actually gets recycled in your county, whether it be glass containers, paper, or aluminum, or all three, which would be great. And then try to choose that as your primary packaging source. So if your county recycles all paper, try to get cardboard boxes, paper products versus plastic. There's a lot of different ways that you can change your lifestyle habits without completely going zero waste. There's ways to start making better choices, better informed choices that still work and don't put a hindrance on how you get through the week. Compost, not everyone has the ability to compost. If you're living in Minneapolis or St. Paul, there is a high chance that wherever you live does have a composting option available. I always save my food scraps and I make vegetable broth out of them. So I just keep a little container in the fridge or freezer, depending on how long it's going to be before I make my vegetable broth. And then before I moved into an apartment, I had a vermicompost bin, which are really easy to set up. You basically just need a plastic bin with some ventilation, and you layer cardboard, plant matter, dirt, and then put some worms in there. And you can put your food scraps into it throughout the week, and the worms should eat it, and it doesn't smell at all, which is amazing. It's something that's really accessible. If you don't have an outdoor composter, this can just slide right under your sink or into a basement or into a closet. Because like I said, it really doesn't smell. And it's a nice way to know your food scraps are getting composted for a way cheaper way than having like a countertop composter, which I'm sure many of you have probably seen floating around online, but they're about $500. So it's not accessible to most. And then lastly, donations. I really encourage everyone before sending an item to the landfill to assess if somebody else could use it or if it can be fixed. I've almost thrown away quite a few items I have, like a cat water fountain that stopped working, or just different electronic appliances that haven't worked. And before throwing it away, I got help fixing them, and I was able to mitigate it from the landfill just by taking like the extra step to reach out to someone and see if I could fix it before just giving up immediately. If you know me personally, you know I'm obsessed with Buy Nothing groups. They are on Facebook, so sorry if you don't use Facebook. I know a lot of the younger generation doesn't, but you should really look for a Buy Nothing group in your area. It's a way for your community to share items, to share goods, and to share knowledge, all for free. Anytime I need a new item, I always post in my group first to ask if anyone has one they're giving away or something that I can borrow. It's amazing for tools. It's amazing for getting new clothes. It's amazing for sharing books. It's just a way to really reduce the consumeristic patterns that we have to just immediately go and buy something that we need versus finding it secondhand. This makes it a lot easier. And then on the left, that's just a picture of all of the donations I collected from that donation drive. It just shows how much stuff people have in their house that we don't really need, whether it be extra warm winter clothes or those single-use shampoos and soaps from hotels that I know almost all of us swipe. Yeah, just make sure that you're looking to see if there could be a potential use for the item before you send it straight to the landfill. It'll make a whole world of difference. So to continue on the worksheet, I made a reflection page and a goal setting page. Feel free to use this however you want. Definitely don't feel like you have to do all 3 pages of the worksheet. I just have used this personally in my own life to organize my thoughts. So I wanted to share what I've done personally with you because it helped me and I really think it can help others. So for the reflection sheets, I'm just going to read through the questions. So the first one is, what were your largest trash contributors? Did you notice any patterns? And this is the question that helps me the most. And that's kind of what I put the last few slides together on with the chips, the bread. I was able to notice really obvious patterns of what I was buying each week and what was contributing the most trash. And it's something that is now the top of my goal list, is creating alternatives for that. And I know that that's the most trash that I'm creating. And then the next question is really important to me. It's, how much of your waste was uneaten or spoiled food waste, and what habits do you think were responsible? Food waste is a huge problem in terms of what is sent to landfills and how much garbage that we're kind of generating here in the United States. Whether it be just not using the entire ingredient that you're cooking with, not saving it for another recipe, or disposing of things like stems, leaves, or just letting food get spoiled in your fridge. All of that is a large contributor to what we send to the landfill. I think it's about 31% of food in an American household is wasted over the year. And that is a huge number, and we really take that for granted being in a developed country. So that's something that I really encourage people to look at and to assess in their own life, because if you can't eliminate plastic waste, food waste is something that every single person can tackle, and it's going to save you money as well as mitigating what's going to the landfill. The third question is, could you have recycled, composted, or donated anything that was put into the landfill by habit? So like I said, really take time to research what you can recycle in your county. You might be surprised to see that you've been sending something to the landfill that your county actually accepts for recycling. You could start a compost program in your house, whether it be a vermicompost bin, an outdoor bin, or sending it to like a drop-off site in your city, and then donating things. In my Buy Nothing group, people will take half full bottles of shampoo, cleaning liquid, food that's about to go bad. So you really can donate almost anything instead of just throwing it in the garbage. If you take that one extra step to reach out and at least put it in the universe and see if you can mitigate sending it to the landfill. And then the last question, I mean, all of us are in school. What was your biggest takeaway from this week? That's a great summary question just to help with the goal setting on the next page. So as I said, this is the goal setting sheet. This is just there to kind of generate ideas for you so you can see what realistically you might be able to incorporate into your lifestyle over the next week, over the next month, over the next year. So yeah, all of these resource sheets are going to be on my website. I'll share the link to where you can download them after the presentation. Feel free to print it, feel free to do it online, feel free to not do it at all. I just want you to take away from this presentation, going home and starting a discussion about your habits, about your practices, and seeing if there's anything that you can incorporate. Now we're going to get into the fun part of the presentation, and we're just going to talk about a bunch of tips and recommendations for living sustainably and eliminating some of the waste in your life. These are all things that I have personally done. They're all my own photos, and they're things that have not only saved me money, but helped me just feel better about, I mentioned eco-anxiety again. The climate movement is just so overwhelming for me. And sometimes I get into really kind of depressions about feeling like I'm the only person out here screaming the world's on fire. But when I look around my home and I see that I'm making active change, it helps ground me and to realize that we're all out here trying. There are other people who care, and we can just keep moving forward. That's the only way to go. So moving into tips and recommendations, we're going to start off with reusable bags. So these are three of the biggest lifesavers of my life. The first one is a reusable Ziploc bag. Amazing for taking snacks to go, for packing your lunches. I bring these to the beach because they're waterproof, water resistant, and they also stand up so your snacks don't tip over. These ones, I believe I got just from Target. As I was walking through the aisles, I saw them because every store now is selling kind of sustainable options, but you can find these anywhere. There's so many different brands. They're all very good. And then most of them are dishwasher safe. So you can pop them in the dishwasher and then just dry them on a little rack afterwards. And you can wash them hundreds of times and they're not going to break. The second thing is reusable produce bags. I eat so many vegetables and I would get such anxiety coming home with 10 to 20 produce bags each time going to the grocery store. So these have been an absolute lifesaver. I have about 20 produce bags now, and I just bring them to the grocery store. They weigh the same as the plastic bags, and you don't have to have a cupboard full of plastic paper bags anymore. Same moral of the story on the right, bringing reusable shopping bags is really an easy way to reduce what you're bringing back into your house in terms of baggage. I just keep a whole stack of them inside of my car so that I have no excuse in forgetting them at the grocery store. So I just always have a couple bags in there. I have a couple bags in my purse, and then I have some at home too in case I don't have my car. That might sound a little like too much, but I go grocery shopping a lot. Anyways, I really recommend all three of these items. They're a super affordable, cost-effective way to reduce some of the garbage that's coming into your home. And if you live here in Oregon or on the West Coast, it does save you money because otherwise we'd be charged 10 cents per each bag. So that's a really great initiative that I think should be spread across the United States. So we'll see if that comes to Minnesota. Next, cutting down kitchen waste is something that I previously mentioned I am super passionate about. So reusing your ingredients in new recipes is really important to me. I collect most of my veggie scraps to make veggie broth. It's as easy as putting your scraps into a pot, covering with water, some seasoning, and then boiling it. And then it keeps in your fridge or freezer for a couple of months. It's a really nice way to get another use out of your scraps. Another thing that I do is juicing. This is a photo from my past website partner, Bella. But you can juice, you can use the pulp to make crackers, you can make burgers, you can freeze them into your smoothies. So it's just another way to not have to throw all that beautiful vegetable nutrition straight into the landfill. You can make other objects that you can eat, and it saves you money in the long run. And then lastly, something that is a little controversial, but it's becoming a more prevalent topic in terms of health and the environmental movement is incorporating more plant-based meals into your week. You don't have to go completely vegetarian or vegan, but starting to incorporate different plant-based meals into your week, like maybe a vegetarian Monday, will show you that you can really reduce a lot of what you're bringing into the kitchen. I cook with mostly vegetables when I cook all vegan. which is amazing because then I only have my food scraps, which get reused in different recipes or for my veggie broth. So it's a nice little cycle of feeling like I'm not contributing a lot to the landfill. Next, we're going to talk about bulk shopping, which of course is a little bit difficult with COVID still happening, but some places are really lifting their restrictions, especially in Minnesota. A lot of the co-ops around the cities and places like Terra Market, you can still use your own containers there, and it's really affordable, especially compared to the grocery store. So these are just a couple of pictures from my bulk section at Winco, which is an Oregon grocery store. Everything is so much cheaper in the bulk section than if I were to go buy it in a plastic bag. The price difference is actually really shocking to me. And you can also use your own containers now, finally. It's a little iffy on stores, so if you're feeling hesitant about bringing your own containers, I do recommend calling wherever you're going to visit and just double check it's okay, to reduce any anxiety you might be feeling about experimenting with bulk shopping for the first time. Things like nuts and larger items I can put into my reusable produce bags, which is amazing. Otherwise, I just have a lot of glass jars and some reusable plastic bags as well. Oh, and it also makes your cupboards look a lot more aesthetic and easy to organize when it's just a bunch of jars compared to a bunch of differently shaped bags and boxes and all of that. Next is shopping local. This is something I am also super passionate about. I always try to go to a local business first before going to a larger corporation. Like I try to shop local before going to Target or before going to somewhere like Walmart. So the picture on the left there is from the Minneapolis Farmers Market. All of you Minnesotans definitely recommend checking that out. They have great produce, as well as local goods and handmade art. The middle picture is from the farmers market out here in Beaverton, Oregon. There's a lot of local food cuisine businesses, local alcohol. It's amazing because they have vegan cheeses and tempeh, and plant-based materials are more prevalent out here. So it's easier to incorporate it into your week because it's more accessible and the same price. And then on the right is just one of my favorite thrift stores from out here in Portland. I really recommend trying to shop secondhand as much as you possibly can. I think you'll really be surprised at some of the treasures that you can find in terms of clothes, decorations, and furnitures. All of my most cherished items that I own, I got secondhand. I don't know if it's the feeling of accomplishment finding them, but everything is just more special to me, knowing that I saved it from the landfill, I gave it a second home, and we get to move forward together. Sounds a little weird, but it helps me to become more passionate just about, shopping secondhand before buying something new, just as the standard. Then we have reusable to-go-ware. So frankly, I have a giant purse and I just keep this inside of my purse always. We go out to get food a lot, especially here in Portland. The food scene is really big. So I always have my reusable cutlery, the chopsticks, fork, and knife. They wash super easily. And then this little bag that they come in also washes. So you don't have to worry about putting like your dirty silverware back into the bag because you can just wash it all together. I always carry around containers, different sizes depending on where I'm going. And then I have liquid containers that I just save old salad dressing jars or spice jars, and they're very cute and they make the perfect size and everything fits in my purse, which is a huge plus. And then I always bring my metal straws. I have 3 so that I can try to share them with my friends when I'm out. The most amazing thing is when I whip these out in front of my friends, it always starts a conversation and somebody always wants to go and buy their own set after they see them. I thought I would be people would think I was dorky or people would judge me a little bit for pulling these out, but I found that it's only gotten positive reactions and it always starts a conversation, which is fun. And I'm someone who's super passionate about talking about the environmental movement. So I like those conversations. And it's just a great way to share inspiration and to influence others. All right. And then the last tip I have is getting into DIY projects. I have gotten really into just kind of trying to make my own products at home versus buying them in the store. It's been a long process and it's a lot of experimenting, of course. But one of my most successful ones was creating the banana peel fertilizer liquid. So I had an outdoor garden. I didn't use a single chemical on it the entire summer, and it produced like crazy. It was amazing. Nothing died, no weeds. This banana peel fertilizer, you just cover it with water, a banana peel in a jar, and then it has nitrogen, potassium, a lot of the good nutrients for your plants. And then you can just dilute it with water and water your garden with it. Another thing that I got really into was making my own face and body scrubs instead of buying products, which I was very intense about trying to have a skincare regime, trying all the new products, all the new things that would take away acne. And then I realized I didn't need all of those plastic bottles. I could just start taking care of my skin properly at home with ingredients that I already have. So I use a lot of like espresso grounds and coconut oil. I also use bentonite clay and activated charcoal. And then I have some like salicylic acid in a glass bottle. And it's worked really well for me personally with my own skin. Of course, I'm not going to recommend that to anyone, but there are ways that you can start experimenting to cut out some of those products that you're probably spending a lot of money on, and it's also bringing a lot of waste into your home. Lastly, I've gotten really into foraging. There is so much in nature that we can use that's edible, that has benefits for your body, for your skin. So one of my favorite projects from last summer was foraging just dandelions in my backyard. I made a coconut oil salve out of them, which is great for sunburns and repairing burnt skin, etc. And then I'm also getting into foraging like pine cones, mushrooms, and I'm looking for rose hips next week to make different teas and different edible objects out of those. So yeah, I really love DIY projects, and it's a great way to have fun with your friends, your partner, your children, etc., or even just alone. Most of these I do alone. So you can visit my website, and like I said, I'm going to send the link at the end, but I have all of the waste audit worksheets on there, and then I made an even longer list of kind of tips and recommendations and sustainable swaps that you can make in your own lifestyle, just because I didn't want to talk for 2 hours about all the different things you can do. So there is a nice long worksheet with the waste audit worksheets. So this is just what the page looks like on my website where you're going to go. And then I would love if anyone wants to reach out. I am really enjoying connecting with people who are just interested in the environmental movement, who want to get more involved in the environmental movement, or people who just want to talk. It's a very stressful situation, and sometimes it really does help to just talk about your worries and your stresses and see what you can do to start relieving them, eliminating them, and taking action on it. So this will all be available for download and will be sent out, but I have my email on here, I have my new website, and I also have my LinkedIn. So I'll leave this up for 1 second in case people wanted to screenshot it. And I'll move forward. This slide got a little messed up, but thank you for listening to me talk for so long about something I'm really passionate about. And I would love if anyone has questions, comments, or if you just want to talk about maybe some of the sustainable changes you've made.
Zoe, this has been fantastic. And I think we get inspired every time we hear tips that other people are doing. Otherwise, it feels lonely and feels like I'm just in this alone. And so it's been very, very helpful. We do have several questions. So I'm going to start out with the first one is, do you have any guides or resources for starting a vermicompost system?
Yes, I do. Whoever asked that, just because I can't see the chat, definitely feel free to reach out to me on email. I will also be posting a blog article on it at the end of the month, but I have a whole written guide that I made for my own personal vermicompost. I would be happy to share it with you. There's also lots of great videos online on YouTube, as well as many different blog articles on Google. It's a very popular project nowadays.
That's great. Thank you. And another question is, do you have any recommendations for sustainable cleaning products? In that it's just, it can get very expensive, and it's hard to set up all the products you need. And so if you have any tips.
Yeah, that's a great question. I am somebody who so I make a vinegar solution. So I soak orange peels that I collected in vinegar for about 1 to 2 months. And I also put some essential oil in there, orange essential oil. And then I just dilute that, and I use that as a general cleaning spray for almost everything, for my countertops, for my bathroom, for the kitchen. I haven't figured out a glass cleaner solution yet, but I use the vinegar solution on everything, and it hasn't damaged any products. And it's really recommended in the sustainable community as vinegar being a great cleaning agent. A lot of you are in the nursing field, so I don't want to say anything about health practices, but in my own life, I use my 50/50 vinegar water diluted cleaning solution to clean basically everything.
Great, thank you. And one person asked about if if you live in a family and you're really excited to make these changes, but the family isn't necessarily excited. Do you have any tips for affecting a family's perspective?
Yeah, that is a great question. Personally, I am somebody who just made the changes. I did them on my own. I set up recycling system in my home. I would go through the trash and take out any recycling I saw in there, and I would make a very kind of dramatic show of putting it into the recycling bin. Also, if you're close with your family, I would really just recommend sitting down and talking to people about why you're passionate about making these changes, especially as youth. This is our future that is really being played with. We are the ones who are going to have to live with the effects of the choices that we're making now. We are going to have to think about it every single day. So really, we should be heard, and your concerns should be heard. So I would really recommend sitting down with your family, kind of talking about the changes you want to make, the role you're going to play in it. And I think just making sure that they know that they don't have to completely flip around their life to make these changes. They just need to support you and maybe follow a couple of new rules. I think they'll be a lot more open versus not coming into it without necessarily knowing what you want to do, knowing why you're doing it, and knowing how it's going to affect them, because it's scary for everyone. But I believe in you, and that makes me so happy to hear that you want to make changes.
Do you have any tips for e-waste? Somebody who talks about, just the massive amounts of unread emails in our boxes, and just the impact of our computers being on all the time, and the electricity that gets trickled away all the time.
That is such a good point. For e-waste, there are several websites out there that you can connect to that will kind of put a block on you getting spam and junk emails. I don't have the specific site, but if you want to reach out to me through email, I can compile a couple of resources for you. Another thing would be switching to a low carbon or carbon free web browser. I personally use something called Ecosia, which is a carbon neutral web browser. They get all of their electricity from renewable energy. They don't store your data. They don't interfere with any of your privacy settings, and it plants trees with each of your searches. So I just choose to use a browser like that because I know that their values align with mine, and it's also safe in terms of privacy. And then in terms of electricity, I always, every single day, probably every 3 hours, do a loop around my apartment and see if anything is plugged in that doesn't need to be. Sometimes I'll forget to unplug my toaster or my espresso machine, and that is one place where electricity is being lost consistently if you're not using an appliance that's plugged in. So I really recommend doing a loop once a day, a couple times a day, to see if anything's plugged in that doesn't need to be. I think you'd be surprised to learn the statistics on how much of a difference that actually does make.
And there's several tips in the chat, other people sharing recommendations that they have or things that they've used. But the idea about this banana peel spray, it was very exciting for us. Can you use that on houseplants too?
Yeah, you can use it on houseplants. Of course, you need to know the plant that you are taking care of. Not every plant needs nitrogen or needs potassium added to it. So there's a lot of different, not every plant is going to need it, but if your plant is in need of those nutrients, it will not harm it at all. I do have a full article on a bunch more different chemical-free gardening and pest reduction tips. If anyone's interested in that, I can always share the link to it. It is on my old website, but it should still be active. I have lots of resources. So if you're interested in a specific topic, I can send you lists of information.
And so I think one of the questions addresses the tension of how do we make some of these complex decisions? For example, that food waste can sometimes be decreased by foods being in packaging, so they last longer and aren't wasted. But then you look at the packaging in the landfill. So can you maybe give us some personal ways that you navigate those decisions?
Yeah, that is a great point, especially when it comes to things like produce, which really do get affected the second that you put them in your fridge. Things like keeping leafy greens in water inside of your fridge reduces wilting, so you don't have to buy them in that big old plastic container. You can stand them upright in a jar with the root just touching water. Similar with green onions, scallions, cilantro. A lot of those things that come in plastic packaging are things that wilt really quickly. So you can just put them in a jar of water and it should keep them fresh. There's also ways that you can use reusable paper towels. You can wrap up your produce in them in kind of a damp paper towel to keep things fresh in your fridge. Google is a magical place. There's a lot of ways to store produce and items without them going bad quickly. It will come down to if you have room in your fridge also. I can understand how plastic packaging, it does make your fridge space a little more efficient when you can stack things versus having jars of a bouquet of romaine lettuce in your fridge. So it's a really great point. And then it brings into the conversation accessibility for individuals who need packaged food to get through the day. And when it comes down to it, we can only make the decisions that work for us and show the larger consumerism companies what we want. If we're buying things without packaging, are they going to want to keep spending money on packaged items? That's decisions that they're going to have to make. And unfortunately, we are not usually in the position of being on the team of large corporations, so we can only make the noise that we can make. That's a great question. It's so hard to start thinking about these on deeper levels. That's kind of what I was talking about beforehand. It's so overwhelming and it can seem so daunting once you start to think about all the little caveats in all of these topics.
Well, I appreciate recommendations that people have been making in the chat, and it makes me think we possibly need a School of Nursing site where we can share these ideas, because it's really about habit changing. If I'm hearing you correctly, Zoe, it's about starting small and being really conscious of our purchasing habits and our lifestyle habits, and not shaming ourselves, but just recognizing that we can possibly change these things. So I think you're such a wonderful living model of somebody who has taken this seriously, somebody who is really looking to live a way that's in balance with our planet. It's not harmful to our planet. And I don't perceive that you're a gloomy person. You're joy-filled, you're healthy, you're vibrant, and your skin is great. So it's like there are so many win-wins here when we really do start to make some of these conscious choices. But a big piece of it is knowing that we're not alone. So I appreciate that you have made these resources available to us, that you are willing to help us grow and transition. And we, as nurses, can then spread the news to our patients who want to be living healthier lives, and to young people that might be in despair we can talk about the ways that we're moving forward in helping the planet. So it's been just a delight to listen to you today. You're such a wonderful role model for all of us. And we're very, very grateful that you spent time with the School of Nursing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And this presentation is being recorded, and it will be on the School of Nursing Planetary Health website. And so I hope you can do your part sharing the news, telling people about the Cut the Crap organization, and beginning to make those ties with other people, that it is possible to create the change that we hope to see. So thank you all for joining us today. And Zoe, thank you for being such an incredible leader.
Thank you.